Welcome to this presentation by the League of Women Voters. Here you can see women protesting in front of the White House to obtain the right to vote. In 1920, after years of advocating for the right to vote, the 19th Amendment was passed. This gave women the right to vote. During that same year, the League of Women Voters was established to assist people to register to vote and provide nonpartisan information so that people could become educated voters. Now this mission continues. The goal of this presentation is to help you register to vote in Virginia using the online registration form. If you want to register with a paper application, view the presentation that explains completing the paper voter registration application form. Additional presentations in this series will address other aspects of voting. Why is it important to vote? It is the best way to make your opinions heard, influence government decisions, and elect people who support your views. If you don't vote, you are giving up your right to impact your government. When America was founded, only white men who were 21 years old or older and owned property could vote. Over the last 200 years, voting rights were gradually expanded to include other groups and property requirements were eliminated. State by state, women advocated for voting rights for many years. They finally won this right when the 19th Amendment was ratified in 1920. However, the right to vote was often suppressed for African American women until the Civil Rights Movement. Young people, ages 18 to 20, were given the right to vote in 1971 during the Vietnam War. Old enough to fight, old enough to vote was the driving message behind the passage of the 26th Amendment. While African American men were given the right to vote in 1870, they were effectively kept away from the polls by Jim Crow laws until the 1960s. It took the sacrifices of hundreds of thousands of young people in the Civil War and the Civil Rights Movement to ensure that African American people could vote. Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis are two of the many people who led the voting rights struggle for African Americans. Their work culminated in the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. You can see the picture of John Lewis being beaten as a young man. Later, he became a leader in the United States House of Representatives. Sometimes people say, "I only have one vote. How I vote will not make a difference." Well, those people are wrong. Every vote counts, and there are many instances where a few votes or even one vote made an impact on the result of an election. Note the examples on the slide. As you can see, this happened recently in Virginia. Here are the requirements for registering to vote in Virginia. Take a moment to read them. Do you meet these requirements? If you do, you can register to vote. Remember, if you are 17 today, but you will be 18 by the next general election in November, you can register now. Check to make sure you know when the next general election is happening. Most importantly, you must also have your Social Security number and your driver's license or learner's permit available so you can complete the registration application form. You must apply to register to vote. I'll explain how to use the online application form to do this. You must have a driver's license, learner's permit, or a Virginia ID from the DMV in order to register online. You need the customer number from these documents. If you do not have one of these documents, you cannot register online and must use a paper application instead. It is very important that the form is completed correctly so the application will be approved and you will be registered to vote. You must type your legal first and last name, no nicknames. For example, if your friends know you by the name Tina, but your real name is Christina, you must type Christina. Type the customer number from your driver's license, learner's permit, or a Virginia ID. Be sure you do this accurately. Information typed into the online form is compared to information associated with your driver's license, learner's permit, or state ID from the DMV. If it does not match, an error message will appear. Each time you finish a page, click Next to continue. On this screen, accurately type your Social Security number and your date of birth. You must click the box below your date of birth that indicates you are providing your own accurate information and not another person's. You're also agreeing that the information from the DMV can be used for your voter registration. Continue to click answers to the questions on the screen. You will be allowed to continue answering questions if your answer meets the criteria for voting in Virginia. You will not be allowed to continue if you do not meet the criteria based on your response. The grayed out words will show in black based on your answers. If you answer that you are registered to vote in another state, you must type the name of that state in the box. If you were convicted of a felony, a very serious crime, or were judged mentally incapacitated, you must indicate that your right to vote has been restored. Complete this information. If this information is already filled in, check to make sure it is correct. Your middle name must be included. If you do not have a middle name, check I do not have a middle name. If you have a suffix, such as junior or the second, please select it. Check I do not have a suffix if this does not apply to your name. Checking a choice under gender is optional. You can leave this blank. Make sure your address is correct. Make changes if it's not. You must check that you have read the terms of the Privacy Act notice. You can click on the question mark to read it. The Privacy Act states that your Social Security number will not be released to the public. It will only be used for lawful purposes, such as voter registration or jury selection. A protected voter is someone who has a court-ordered legal record that says their information will not be released as part of the voter lists for the jurisdiction. A choice under protected voter and another under classification were selected for you. Review the information and change the selections only if it's appropriate. Under the question, would you like to vote by mail? The directions ask you to choose an absentee option. This means you need to decide if you want to vote by mail or not. The choice of not voting by mail, absentee, is selected for you. This means you want to vote in person either on election day or during early voting. If you do want to vote by mail, click on one of the other circles. Your phone number and email address are not required, but if you select these, the Office of Elections might be able to contact you if there is a question about your registration. You can also volunteer to work as a poll worker on election day. On this screen, you can click to reread the information that you have provided. You must click the box under Voter Registration Affirmation. Here you are saying that the information you have provided is correct. Then be sure to click the Submit button in the bottom right. Once the application has been submitted, you should receive notice within 30 days from the Board of Elections. If your registration was successful, you will receive a notification that identifies your polling or voting place. This is usually a location close to your home. Keep this in your records in case you need it in the future. If your registration is not successful, the notice will tell you the problem with your application. Then you can try again using the online form or with a paper application form. If you use a paper form, it must be completed correctly and mailed with a stamp on the envelope. Once you are registered, you can vote. But are you ready to vote? Do you know the issues? Have you decided which candidate you'll vote for? In order to be an informed voter, you need to know the issues, find out information about the people who are running for office, and check the facts that you are hearing on social media, the radio, or TV. How are you going to do all of this? Where will you get the information? Look at this website when you are planning to cast your vote. Vote411.org is a nonpartisan website that has all the information you need so that you can make careful and informed decisions. Enter your name and address and you will get information about who is running for office, when the election will be held, and other issues that will be on the ballot. You can also check to make sure you are registered and locate your polling place. Voting is a right to be treasured and used. Many people have fought and some have even died for this right. Voting is your right and responsibility as a citizen of the United States. Becoming an informed citizen and vote. Voting is your power.